what you do?
I'm Mark Meatto. I'm the director of a new documentary called How to Grow Bands.
Okay, thank you very much. What led you to deciding to document the Punch Brothers for this project?
The idea actually came from my producing partner, Mike Bowman, who didn't make it to Chicago with me this weekend. Mike had grown up with Gabe Witcher, who's the fiddle player in Punch Brothers. So I think he had this idea in his head for a while to do something about their musical life. So I think when they started this new group together, Gabe teamed up with Chris Thiele and the other members of the band to do this new ambitious piece of music. I was getting a lot of phone calls from Mike then about bringing my camera down and shooting them. So I did.
You interviewed John Paul Jones for the film. He himself plays mandolin and played on several Zeppelin classics as well as the Perky Vultures. How did you get John Paul Jones to be interviewed for the film?
We called up his manager, and they were really great and friendly and accommodating. I did have to go to London to do the shoot with him, but they were really wonderful. You know, John Paul Jones, just like Edgar Meyer, Yo-Yo Ma, Jerry Douglas, and these other musicians that we see in the film, who are not in the band Punch Brothers, are all musicians who have had creative relationships with the guys in Punch Brothers. So I think the fact that they were fans of the music made it a lot easier for them to say yes to the guys who were making the documentary.
Did you shoot him while you were already over there in Scotland shooting the earlier stuff as well? Or?
No, it was actually a separate standalone shoot that we did after the tour.
Okay. As I just brought up the Scotland thing, there is a scene of the band performing The Blind, Leaving the Blind in Scotland to a very cold audience reaction. This is an important scene as it sets up some tension within the band with Greg Garrison kind of like questioning why are we doing it in its entirety, supposed to doing it separately or such. Also, it's a good starting point to actually show eventual acceptance of the band's progressive sound later on in the film. As a filmmaker, how important was it to capture moments such as this in telling the band's story?
Moments such as?
Kind of like that song in general, because it's kind of like the basis of the film in itself. And like I said, early on, people are kind of cold and distant towards it, and you see, like I said, with Greg Garrison kind of being a certain way towards it as well. But liking the song, but also kind of wanting to break it up more. And then later on, the song itself is more accepted into like a lot of circles and with the band and as well. So it's like you have like two different things going on at the same time. So it's like a progression within the band as well. So at that moment in particular of Scotland, how important was that to capture that within the story itself?
Well, I mean, I'm not when I'm filming, I'm not looking to capture anything besides what's happening. But certainly had the reception at that show in Scotland, which is the first show of the tour, the first show that I filmed them at, really. Had that gone differently, had the audience loved it, I'm sure that would have sent the film and the filming down a totally different path. So, yeah, that was a very influential moment in our thought process about trying to figure out what was happening in the lives of these guys. So yeah, that ends up being a pretty key moment in the film. But I think I try to be careful to not root for and definitely not guide any outcomes. But that had happened, I think, gave us something that we could really kind of pin the first act of the movie to, and that does end up mattering a lot structurally for how the movie unfolds.
Speaking of that particular song, it has 4 different movements and stuff, and in the film itself, in a way, it basically has 4 different acts in the film.
That's right.
Within the 4 movements of the song. Was there a particular reason for breaking the film down this way, and which of the film's acts stands out to you the most?
Well, that's like asking what your favorite child is. So I'm not sure about that one, but I think in terms of the decision to structure the film around this piece of music, and have these chapters in the film that are kind of self-scored with music from the corresponding movement. I think, in the editing room, we really felt like that could give the movie some shape. I mean, at our disposal already was this incredible piece of music that has its own narrative contours to it, its own ups and downs. And so playing around with appropriating and repurposing some of those things that are happening in the music, I think it helped give some structure and some shape to the documentary and to the story that we were trying to tell.
One thing I also noticed in the film that I didn't notice the first time I saw it, but I noticed it on the second time.
Thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. There's a scene in which, as it brought up Greg Garrison, where like they're after a particular performance, he's like on Skype talking with his family and whatnot. And there's also another moment after he's out of the band where he brings up the fact that he's a father and husband first, the bassist second. Was that like an intentional foreshadowing moment of him talking to his family, and then later on he's out of the band, but he's carefully bringing up that his family kind of comes first as well?
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to have a little nod towards that without getting too deeply into his family life, but just kind of a little clue to let people know that there is a world outside of the walls of the minivans that these guys were traveling around in at the time.
Okay. Were there any scenes that you filmed that, looking back, you would have liked to have kept in the film?
Oh gosh, there are lots of them. Let's see. Well, there was I actually filmed them at the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I wasn't allowed to film on the sound stage, but I could film in the green room and stuff. And there were some great improvisational jams that went on back there, which is sort of unrelated to the fact that it was happening at the Tonight Show, but some great funny music making that I wish kind of could have found its way into the movie. But there's time for that in the land of DVD extras and all that stuff.
Some bands end up finding faults and disagree with their portrayal in certain documentaries. How's the reaction of the band been towards the film so far?
I think they've been accepting of it. From the beginning, they very much let us alone to do our own thing with the movie. And for that, I remain grateful. But I think for anyone, it must be really difficult to have a moment in your life and a transitional moment at that in the hands of someone else and rendered and put into a film. So I'm sure that's difficult for anybody. Also, one of the themes of the movie is kind of this group of artists' fixation on the horizon line, what's coming up next, as opposed to where they've been